Hey guys, welcome back to another tumbler tutorial. Today we're going to be working on this Snowglobe tumbler, and then we're going to be using a UV DTF, which I've never shown on this channel before. They're super easy to use, but I wanted to kind of show you how it works. So we're going to start out by taping off the top rim of the Snowglobe tumbler. My painter's tape is backwards, the sticky part is outwards, and then we're going to go back in with a second row of the painter's tape, putting the sticky inwards so it will actually adhere to the cup. What this does is allows us to fill that top cavity with glitter without the glitter actually sticking to the painter's tape. And then we can salvage any kind of cast off glitter. It's not going to stick to the tape and we're not going to lose a bunch of glitter. Just not being wasteful basically. So I'm going to use my metal stir stick here to kind of encourage that to go into that hole there. You can also use one of those deep tissue massage guns if you've got a lot of cups to work on. That will kind of speed up the process. If you've got like arthritis issues or anything, that helps a lot. So we're just going to put probably, I would say probably like a sixth of the cup, maybe like a fifth. I'm not really sure on measurements. We just don't want too much glitter because the more volume of glitter you have in there, the less chance that the glitter is going to have to move around. It's basically going to be too compact, and then once you fill the liquid, you're not going to get a good flow. So we're going to fill that up to the bottom, probably like I said about sixth, and then I'm going in with my mixture on the screen here. This mixture I came up with probably about 6 months ago. I don't like when my glitter sinks to the bottom of the cup really quickly, so I came up with this mixture that allows it to suspend into the cup for several hours. I did do one over the winter and it was still suspended the next morning. I did the cup, let it sit upside down to let the air bubbles rise to the top, and it was still floating the next morning when I came back. So it seems to work pretty well. I don't buy anything fancy, so if that is what you're looking for, I would try this mixture. And then I'm filling the liquid about halfway up the cup. We don't, on this first round, want to fill it up completely full because you're gonna have to shake the cup to loosen that glitter from the top rim. If you fill it with liquid completely full the first time around, there's not going to be any space for that glitter and liquid to mix up. So fill it about halfway, get all of that glitter loosened from the top rim, and then once that's loosened, go ahead and fill it up with the liquid the rest of the way. I am adding a little bit more water. My mixture was a little less on water than normal, so I just put it in this little needle nose squeeze bottle, filled it up, and to the top rim as best I could. There's always going to be a little air pocket when you do this, so just kind of tip the cup and try to, I like to explain it as like puncturing the air bubble so you can fill that liquid up as full as possible. And then once you've got the desired amount of liquid, we're gonna let that sit and rise for several hours. Some people call it gassing off. You can let it gas off for about 24 hours. I just waited a couple of hours to do this, and I will show you in this next clip a sped up, probably like hour maybe or so, that I let it sit and gas off and all the air bubbles rose to the top here. It's crazy how quick this happened. And then once it does all rise to the top, then you're going to put a little bit of rubbing alcohol, 91% rubbing alcohol in it, and that's going to pop any of those air bubbles that rose to the top. Once the glitter is suspending how I want it to and the air bubble is lessened as much as possible, I'm just going to take my tape off and I'm going to use the 91% rubbing alcohol to rub the bottom of the cup. The Elmer's magic liquid is it's kind of oily, or I don't want to say sticky. It's a little bit oily. If you try to use this Gorilla Glue tape and you have any of that oily residue, it's going to repel the tape. And then if your tape's not sticking to cover that cavity, of course your cup's gonna leak. So make sure that is completely clean. We don't want any oiliness there. We're just gonna apply that tape over top of it and cut it down to size. We want to give a little bit of space around the hole there. We don't want to cut it right up to it because then chances are you're going to get lifting. So don't cut it too close to that hole, but also we don't want it covering that entire bottom of the tumbler, and it tends to lift under the epoxy. So cut it somewhat close, but not right up to the hole of the snow globe. Some of the snow globe cups come with a rubber plug that you can just put in there. I would still recommend putting UV epoxy or some sort of epoxy over it to make sure that that plug doesn't pop out when you are epoxying it. And then I'm going to go in with this UV DTF. This is from Peachy Glitters, and I think it's the XL one. And I will tell you, when you're applying these, you better make sure that this is where you want it the first time, because if you are putting this on the cup, it is not moving. So you better make sure that you want it where you got it, and be sure about your placement. And then once you've got that laid down, we're going to go ahead and remove that clear transfer sheet, just like we do with transfer tape on a regular vinyl decal. I did get some air bubbles here, so I went through and popped them with my X-Acto knife, and you could still see them. This UV DTF does not have to be covered up by epoxy. It does stick, it doesn't bleed when it gets wet. So epoxying over it is totally optional, but I will tell you that with the air bubbles that were showing without epoxy on it, they did get covered as soon as I put epoxy over it. They just completely drown out underneath the epoxy. So I would recommend doing that, and just keeping the longevity of the tumbler. It's going to help tremendously. So we're going to pop all those air bubbles, and then of course cover that tape on the bottom with the UV resin. And then next I'm going in with a coat of epoxy. This is just plain epoxy. There's no glitter in it. I'm just kind of wetting the base, if you will, to allow the glitter in this next step to apply more smoothly to the tumbler. So just a thin coat of this epoxy, and then I'm going to go back in and add Venetian, which is our inner glitter color, and I'm going to put that over top of everything. So once the glitter settles in the snow globe, so if it's sitting in your cupboard, you're still going to have glitter adhered in the epoxy over the glass. So it's not going to be just plain glass, all the glitter sunk into the bottom. You're still going to have that glitter suspended, or it's going to look like it's suspended. It's basically an illusion. And it's going to be inside the epoxy. So of course it's not going to move as soon as it's cured. So we're going to apply that. I did go right over the UV DTF that I put on there as well. That's optional. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. And then once everything is applied, I'm going to take a baby wipe around that top rim, and we're essentially just creating a fine line of stainless steel like we do on the cups, but with a snow globe, so we don't want any glitter or epoxy over that top rim. We're going to torch the air bubbles out of that, and then once this is cured, we're going to go in with a second coat of epoxy. After that's cured, this cup is completely finished. You could top it off with some rhinestones on that bamboo lid if you want to. You could just glitter it, however you want to finish that off, but for this tutorial, this design is done. If you aren't already, go ahead and like and subscribe, hit that bell button for notifications on future tutorials, and I will see you guys next weekend.